ora, Warren?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Just
How are you?
not bad at all.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time. I greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Have you caught some of the other shows?
I did. I was just watching the one with Simon a little while back.
Yeah.
Just to check out the format and stuff like that. Man, he's an awesome guy. I love watching his
Yeah.
Facebook posts.
Yes, absolutely. So again, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I've been really enjoying your own channel and your videos. They've been really great.
Thank you.
I can't say that I've gotten through all of your chords videos yet, but there's a lot of fantastic information in there, and they've been a lot of fun to watch
Cool, I'm glad to hear that.
and learn from. Yeah, it's really good stuff. And then yeah, just your music itself, I love putting that on, especially when I'm working, and by working I mean day job, because in the day job I am on the computer a lot, but I can't listen to anything with lyrics because it throws me when I'm writing or reading documents or whatever the case might be there.
Right.
So having things that are mostly instrumental based is the sweet spot for me, and I'm always looking for good music for that. And yours has been a godsend. So it's been really good.
I'm glad I fit in that,
Yeah,
that description.
yeah, right. This one little narrow category, and you've nailed it. So it's perfect. Yeah. So tell me about your journey to where you are at now. Like, where did you start playing guitar?
I was lucky. I was born into a musical family, so at least on my dad's side, most of them play an instrument of some sorts. My granddad played the harmonica. My dad played bass and guitar. His brother, I think, plays guitar, bass, keyboards, and that sort of thing. So I was surrounded by them, and I think around 5, I got my first guitar. Because my parents noticed I would go to my dad's guitar, which was probably as tall as I was, and I would pluck the strings, which were, in tune with, somehow I could, figure that out. So, okay, maybe he needs a guitar of his own. And so, yeah, from 5 to around 15, it was just something I did. I guess I took to it pretty quickly because my dad started teaching me, like, little classical pieces and stuff like that. And then I think around 8, I got into the Beatles in a big way. So that was like a huge, education. And I think one of my uncles had most of the albums on vinyl, and I didn't have a vinyl player, so I'd go and get them, transferred to cassette. And that was a big education. And I think it still kind of informs a lot of what I do till this day.
Nice.
Just like the economy of melody and coming across with like a motive and things like that. Still love George's playing in that respect. So I think by around 13 or something, I kind of got into, British classic rock, Zeppelin and Queen and Thin Lizzy, and well, actually Thin Lizzy's Irish. But yeah, all those blues rock-based bands. And I think I really like Cream, and my dad was like, you should check out the blues, and that's where all the stuff comes from. So he was kind of like a little bit of a musicologist, in the background, that I could access when I needed, like, what's this about, and who played on that and stuff like that. He and his brother, they would read the liner notes on the vinyl records when they came out. So that was cool. And then I think by the time I got out of school, I had a couple of months, and that's, I think, when I delved into it in a big way, and just started getting my jobs together. And around the same time, some of my other mates were playing music as well. So we decided to get together and have a few jams. And that eventually led to me joining a band, my very first band called Vicious Circle, with a couple of mates. I think we only played one gig, and then the bass player left to go to the States to study. So right after that came a band called Zero that I was part of. And we still play the odd gig till this day, which is cool. And that kind of got me, playing in front of people, on a big scale, and to the point where we were doing like these big festivals and stuff like that. Around 2004, I moved to New Zealand, and effectively, it ended up me leaving the band. And while I was here, it was like a completely new start musically. I didn't really have anyone to like, jam with and stuff like that. But I had invested in a little recording setup, which I set up in my parents' garage. And between my brother and me, we kind of, got the hang of, programming drums and the total DIY approach. And he was like, if you've got anything that needs drums, I've got a really nice drum programming software. So it's like, yeah, there's a bunch of unfinished ideas, but they're all instrumental guitar stuff, as opposed to like the vocal stuff with Zero. And he was like, yeah, just play me some of them and we'll see what we can do. And that eventually led to the first Blackstratblues album.
Nice.
That, came out around, I think, 2007. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't really intended to be like my main musical focus. It was like a side project, I guess, at the time, which then evolved into, something that at least till this day, we still have a decent audience every time we play in India. And I'm pretty thankful for that. People still listening to instrumental guitar.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, I know you just opened for Extreme not that long ago. Mm-hmm. And which band was that with? That was with Zero. Okay. Yeah. That must have been quite amazing. And how did I got to ask? How did that wind up being the lineup? Like that sounds awesome. So, what transpired to pull that off?
I think what happened is the guy who books for that particular festival, he was like one of the, big supporters back when, Zero was still a thing back in the, 2000s. And he was like, you guys should get back together and, play a gig to open for Extreme. And we were like, oh, yeah, sure. But the singer lives in London. The guitar player is in Auckland. And we just have to meet and rehearse a couple of days. I think we should be able to pull that off. So yeah, it was. The thing is, even though we broke up, we over the years we've managed to play like a few, reunion gigs or whatever.
Sure.
For us, it's just coming together, having a good time, eating some good food, telling some stories and jokes, and it's more like a social hang for us because we all grew up together. So it was nice just meeting the boys, and then obviously, getting to see Nuno from side of stage, it's like a totally different world rather than watching it from up front. You might see the cues with the guitar tech and, that sort of thing. So it's a pretty awesome experience. And then we did get to hang out with them for a little while. I think both Nuno and Gary, for some reason, they decided to come and check us out as well. So they were like, quite enjoyed you guys performing and stuff like that. Oh, cool.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. That's a great experience. And what a great opportunity.
Yeah, totally.
That's just super cool. I saw your pictures with Nino and the crew. That was actually really cool. So,
really sweet people.
Yeah. Everything I've seen has said that they're, super nice. So that's really great. What was your first guitar?
My first guitar was like a little, I guess 3/4 size acoustic, like a parlor size guitar. And my dad felt like, my hands were small at the age of 5, so I couldn't really play a full-size one. And then I think I went over to some kind of an Indian dreadnought, whatever the local model was. And around, I think 15 or so, I started bugging them for an electric guitar, and they were a little bit like, oh, yeah, you just need to practice a little bit more, right? I've been playing for 10 years and they're like, now you got to practice some more. So I went down to the local music shop. I remember I took part in some quiz competition and made some, prize money. And I bought a little pickup that I managed to stick onto the acoustic. And then I realized, okay, you need to have nickel strings. Otherwise, the phosphor ones don't pick up on that. So yeah, put electric guitar strings. And I needed an amp. And my granddad had this old 2-in-1. So I, being of some electronic inclination, I managed to jack that into the back of it. And, that became my amp. And then I realized you push all the graphic EQ sliders to full and it starts distorting. So then now we're in business, right?
Very nice.
By the time I was like 17, I think they finally caved in. And, my dad's, one of his musician buddies was selling an Hofner Galaxy. That's what I kind of did some Googling and found out that's what it was. But that guitar, man, it was like highly microphonic. So it would always, you could almost like hear your speech through the pickups.
Yeah.
It wasn't intended as like a high gain thing, which is what I was after at the time. So I think around my 19th birthday, my mom got me a really nice Fender Strat. It had a Floyd Rose and a humbucker on the bridge, which is exactly what I wanted of, Mm-hmm. That's all the stuff I was into.
Sure.
So, and my dad had an old Fender Bassman, like a 135 watt, and that thing would never distort. It was just always clean. They were designed to, not distort. So I needed some overdrive pedal. I got a Boss HM2. Mm-hmm. And another curious thing is my dad's uncle, his dad's brother. He lived upstairs, and that guy was like a total DIY guy. So like he wound his own pickups back in the 60s and stuff like that. And he got the local hi-fi guy to build him a guitar amp, which I now have figured out it was a clone of the Vox AC10.
Okay.
And he was like, yeah, I've got this old guitar amp. If you want, you can borrow it. And it had those screw-on type connectors. So I had to take those out and put, 1/4-inch sockets.
Yep.
And that was a good sounding thing. But the only problem is it wasn't very loud. And then I figured how to jack the output of that into the input of the basement. So you could like get the small amp to drive and then get the big amp to make it loud.
Yeah.
And then one day that little thing blew up. I guess I hadn't figured out how to load it down properly. So, I was using some crude 8-ohm resistor or something like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was like, early experiments and, guitar sounds and stuff. And then I think around 2001, my parents knew this guy who had a big backline company. He was getting rid of some inventory. One of the amps he was selling was an old JCM 800, 2203 single channel one. 1981, I think, was the the year, or 80, the very first year.
Yep.
That was like my moment when I figured, okay, that's how this bloody whole thing works. That's the sound I've been trying to get for years, and here it is. And and then like till now, that's kind of still where I'm like a Strat into a Marshall. That's like my bass tone, and then you put some pedals, like Jimmy and everyone after him did.
Yep.
And then you use the guitar volume and stuff like. So that's another thing that I got very early, because the only way to get that Marshall to clean up was to roll it down, and that became part of the playing over the years.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, do you think that having that first Strat is what pulled you towards the Strats? Because as I understand it, that's kind of your preferred platform, right? And scale length.
I always liked the look, even when I was a kid. My dad had some guitar magazines lying around, and I would like go through all the, they had like a whole list of, all the Fender guitars and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, that Strat's good. I think the color scheme came from watching The Edge in that Streets Have No Name video.
Mm-hmm.
He's got an all black one. So that was like, I like the black big guard on the black body with the maple neck. I think he's got the big headstock, which I prefer the small one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That's fantastic. And yeah, what a great JCM 800 story too.
Coming back to the Strat, actually, I should just say something though. Like having a humbucker on the bridge kind of let you get the best of both worlds.
Sure.
And two of my favorite players at the time were Stevie Ray Vaughan and Gary Moore. So I kind of wanted to, go into both those worlds at will. I mean, you can't really get the neck thing, but I figure out, if you hit the pedal, turn the tone knob down, you can get that little bit of the dark neck humbucker kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like, if you've only got one guitar, I think an HSS Strat is a good place to start.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and you said you tend to gravitate towards that JCM 800 style sound, and I know you have a Plexi.
Mm-hmm.
So that one's is that Plexi you have? Is that I know it's not a Marshall, but
so you got this company called Rocket Retro in St. Louis, I think.
Okay.
And I wanted a super bass, and then thinking 100-watt may be a bit too much, and I already have a 100-watt Marshall. I got into a 50-watt, so it's a 1986.
Yeah, that's what
and then I noticed I never used the normal channel. I was only using the bright channel. So I figured I could just change a few capacitors and get the normal, like a lead, an early version of a 1987. So that's kind of what that Marshall is right now. It's like a bass on one side and a lead on the other side.
Nice. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great.
I've got a cool JDM 45 story if you want to hear it.
Yeah, I would love to hear it. Yeah.
So one of the amps I had during the years was a Mesa Boogie Mark III. And at one point I was like, heavy into like fresh cream. That was like my, Valhalla tone or whatever. So I was like, right, I need a JDM 45 of some sort. And there was this guy in Wellington who wanted to trade for my Mark III. So we each drove to Taupo and we swapped amps and came back, and then, did some more digging and figured, it's the reissue. It's got, 6L6s or 5881s. It needs the KD66s. And then was this guy called Mars Tran in America who I was emailing, and he said, yeah, these are transformers and stuff. So he sent them over. I had Clary, replace the transformers. Clary has been our local Oakland amp guru.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I've got these old mustard caps and everything. Do you want me to put those in? I was like, yeah, sure. If you want to do that, sure. So, got the whole thing done. And it came maybe like 6 months later. I was quitting my day job to work in a recording studio at the time. So I needed to generate some funds. So I put the amp for sale. But before that happened, there was a Wilco tour of New Zealand. And by the time I found out they were playing Auckland, the tickets had sold out already. I was like, shit, there we go. And then I get a call like 2 days before the gig from Nels' guitar tech saying like, hey, we need to borrow your JDM 45 if you don't mind lending it to us. So I was like, yeah, sure, I can do that. But do you think I could get some tickets to the gig? Yeah, sure, we'll get you tickets and we'll pay you some money. I was like, oh, yes.
Nice.
So yeah, they used that for the whole New Zealand tour.
Wow.
And then not too long after it, I ended up, selling it to finance a recording engineering career for like a few months. That was like, so I kind of miss that amp sometimes, but it's like just a bit of a story that's more important than actually having it.
yeah, for sure. So would you say that that's your amp that probably got away that you would love to have back?
Yeah, I miss that sometimes. And I miss the Mark III as well, These days, like the old Mesa Boogies, like they have some semi-collectible thing. But I know where the amp is. It's lying with a friend in Wellington. So it's kind of nice to know that it's with good people.
That's good. That's great. Yeah, for sure. I gravitate towards the Marshall sound myself. And I have a 78 2204. Technically it's 2104. That's what that cab there is actually a couple of 78 blackbacks in it. So right. Sounds amazing. I had to fix one of the speakers, but sounds great. And the amp itself is now that I've actually got it back up to spec, it's humming right along quite nicely. Although I have tons of studio questions for you.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, one of the things that I'm running into is hunting ghosts right now. Anytime I turn on one of the 50-watt amps that I have, any of them, doesn't matter, the transformer's just humming like crazy. So I think I have a DC offset thing that I need to hunt down.
That's the first thing I was going to say, because I've got the same thing on a couple of outlets. So I've been looking into like maybe trying a DC blocker, which the hi-fi guys are fond of, but I don't know if it's going to handle the wattage that the amp draws. Right. But I've noticed that more here, because like back in India, I never really had that many issues. But especially here, like even like my iPhone charger, like, you're playing guitar and you touch your phone, suddenly you get like a zap.
Yeah.
And you think like, oh, and apparently someone's measured that DC offset. It's quite high. It's unusually high for, a residential location, I would think. But
yeah. What part of Auckland are you in?
I'm in West Auckland, a place called Western Heights.
Okay. I'm over in Ranui. So
yeah, not too far away.
Not too far away at all.
Must be in the hood.
Yeah, exactly, right? So yeah, I'm half tempted to call Vector and ask them to come figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think if I get a blocker and it works, then it's probably time to call Vector and tell them like, and then I could send them a video too, and just be like, look. So yeah, so the studio tour I know that you did on YouTube was great. Has it changed much since then? Because I think that was about 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think the orientation of the room has changed because I face a different window. But I think by and large, a lot of the studio gear is still the same. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that you have somewhat of a different recording rig that you've been working with.
Yeah, over these, I think, last few months, I've kind of been using the Sir reactive load with the UA aux stomp.
Nice.
And earlier I was using like different software cab emulations, but once that aux stomps come in, it's nice to just select from like 6 sounds, edit it on the fly, and just track it. And not really, I mean, later on I can EQ it if need be, just to get it to fit in with everything else, but that's usually the only thing I really end up doing.
Nice.
And this track over here, you can see you've got like all of them going through this little mixer. So I have one stereo track which is the aux dry, and then the second stereo track is all this effects.
Nice.
Now, the cool thing is, like, if I do need to change that effects later, I can just send that out from the computer back into the rack and record it back again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite kind of been a good workflow for me.
That's really cool. And you're enjoying the aux stomp?
Yeah, I mean, today I was comparing it with the Boss TAE core, which Roland kindly sent across for me to check out. So we're just going back and forth. But I do think, at least for my style, the way those aux cabs react to my playing in real time, that feels really good. The only thing I think, apart from that I sometimes use is 2 notes wall of sound, because the aux cabs are kind of, what you get is what you get.
Yeah.
So if I want something, out of the box, as it were, I'd go across to like wall of sound. But these TAE cabs are quite cool. I just need to get into, obviously spending time tweaking things.
Yeah, for sure. And so with the UA gear, for me, I really wanted to love the UA gear. Like, I desperately wanted to love the UA gear. I do love the preamps that they have built into them. But then it just really didn't work for my workflow. So I kind of moved away from it, and that's fine. It's just not for me. And that's all good. But what was it that drew you to that gear?
I think from my workflow point of view, the ability to run plugins in the console with very low latency without having to open a DAW on the side, which means I could just, if I'm just wanting to jam along with something, like a backing track or whatever, I don't have to like boot up Cubase and everything like that. They had a really good deal, and they still do in India. And that guy was really good with, interfacing with artists and saying, do you need anything and stuff like that. So
nice.
They would do deals like, you buy the hardware and stuff like that, and we'll see what we can do with regards to the plugins, So then I would just send them a list of this is what I want. And, they would try and have some kind of an arrangement with the company.
Nice.
So having those guys was cool, but if I had to deal, directly with the company, I don't think I'd be getting, too far in that regard.
I see.
So they've got like a bunch of good sounding stuff, like especially from like the guitar point of view, like the Lexicon chorus and the tri-stereo, the Lexicon reverb and the tri-stereo chorus and all that stuff. So I did have an API A to D preamp, like an actual API one, that I still have, and then I would try and go back and forth between the API emulation and that. I'm hearing like minimal differences here. So the thing is, once you get into the the ecosystem, it kind of becomes cool. But sometimes you wish they would do things like I wish they would do an aux plugin, which they easily can do. I think it's just not in their financial interest to do that because they're selling the hardware and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, it's almost like Apple.
Yeah.
Where things are certainly not being, pushed when they could be, just because it's not, I guess every business has their bottom line at heart.
Yeah.
But, just as a user of the things, you sometimes wish they were like all those new amp pedals keep coming out, and each of them have got new cabs, and you could put those cabs into the aux stomp and give me a couple of new cabs. I mean, companies like Line 6 are still supporting like Helix hardware from like 7 or 8 years back, and this is like anyway, I'm just getting on a rant here, but
that's okay.
Sometimes it is a little like, please listen to us, we know what we're talking about.
yeah, exactly. Yep. I do have several of the UA plugins sets that I got, I think, on a Black Friday sale a couple of years ago, and they're great. Actually, the compressor plugins are fantastic, work magic, kind of thing. So I have really enjoyed that. But yes, that's awesome. And then I know you have the Sura reactive loads. Yep. And I noticed in the video, and this is something I have to ask about because I'm sorry, I'm going to totally nerd out on studio stuff, but but I noticed that you showed that you have a line out from the Sur into your high Z input for the.
At the time I did, because the thing is they are not they're passive, right? So there's just a transformer inside, and there's something with the impedance that it needs to see a higher impedance, and then in the UA interfaces, the line and things are like 10K and the high Zs are like 1 mega ohms. So I think Sir himself recommended using the high Zs.
Oh, okay. Yep.
But what I do now is I just run the unbalanced out into the aux knob,
Mhm.
and then the aux knob goes into the line-ins at the back, and that kind of,
Nice.
takes care of things. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, that was kind of like my, best of both worlds, because I did have the old aux, but then the Sir load just felt and sounded better to my ears.
Nice.
So I was like, wouldn't it be nice to have the Sir load with the aux software? And then when this came out, I was like,
Perfect.
there we go.
Yeah, that's great. That's amazing. Yeah, I've been having really good luck with I have one of the Fryette power stations.
Oh yeah,
now
that's a very nice one as well.
Yeah, with my old interface that I had, that the signal was too hot coming into the front. It just couldn't even handle it. Even if I had the preamp like buried, it was still too hot. But the new one seems to be enjoying it, I'll say.
Cool.
So I think when I talked to Nick, he mentioned that you do some reamping, and I would love to hear more about that if you can.
Yeah, so actually I can just grab it. I bought this not too long ago for a project that I had like recorded, clean DI stuff as a backup, and I was like, wouldn't it be nice to, run them to some better gear that I have now, so just as a restoration kind of thing. So yeah, this has made life, a lot easier in that sense. So like if you're, away from home and you are somewhere in a hotel room, maybe you can just, record a DI with an amp sim and then come back and, run it into this. I found like the gain staging is kind of critical. So I kind of do it by ear now, and at least, with how much the signal needs to hit the amp. I think that's the most crucial part, because there's no real standard for, recording DI guitar, unfortunately, like, peak at -3 or something or whatever. So you kind of have to just, but the good thing is I'm kind of pretty finely tuned with like how much guitar volume, goes up and down and stuff like that. So I know exactly how hard I'm hitting at either the pedal or the amp. So this becomes almost like the volume knob on my guitar.
Nice.
I'm just dialing it in by ear. And sometimes I almost ride it up at certain points where like, the signal drops a bit. So I'll slowly hear a bit of a goose and I'll, pull it back.
Yeah.
And this filter is kind of cool. It's like having a tone knob as well. I don't really use the boost, but that cut, especially if it comes in a bit too bright, is nice for that sort of thing.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it works pretty well.
Does the trick.
I mean, in fact, thinking like I should do it a bit more for, other people. So, all I can say is bring it on.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've been thinking about doing exactly the same thing, and just mostly just for friends and acquaintances if they need a thing that needs to go through some specific amp or needs a little flavor to it that they're not getting elsewhere, then I've got a stash that I can run those through. So, and yeah, I've actually been creating a video on comparing some of the reamp boxes, and I've got hilariously, I have a stack of them now. So I have the Tone X capture, I have the radial that you just showed there. I've got the Little Labs Red Eye, which is actually, so far it's my favorite. And then I have one of the ART units. That one does not hit the amp hard enough in the front, even though it's supposed to be designed to do that. It's not happening. So it's always bad finding that one out the hard way when you've given yourself a deadline that you need to get through with the thing. So, but yeah, I love talking about that kind of stuff as well. And it's nice to hear that there's somebody else doing some.
In fact, with the reamp box, I've been meaning to make a whole bunch of, amp captures and then just sending it off to a friend of mine who does that neural amp modeling thing, because I don't have the knowledge or the time or patience to do the actual coding myself.
Yep.
So I said I can just, record the test files and send it off to you. So like, yeah, that hopefully should at least, there's a new hardware device. It's a company called Dimehead.
Yes.
And I've been looking at that because they're really low latency. Yep. So, apart from like Tone X and Neural Amp, the Neural DSP guys and stuff like that, that's the one I'm actually looking at trying. But apparently, interestingly enough, he said he didn't have a certification to send it to New Zealand. But,
really?
I've got a friend in UK, so I could just get it sent to him and then he would send it here. So I don't know what that's about. But yeah, I'd love to get my hands on it at some point.
Yeah, for sure. How many albums do you actually have out currently?
Let me think now. I think I've got 6 studio albums and 2 live albums, if I'm not mistaken.
Nice. And is there one of those that you would say is your favorite?
I kind of lean towards the later period stuff, but there's one album called The Last Analog Generation, so I would recommend probably that as a starting point because that's got a little bit of everything in it. And it's still, I think when it came out, it was the first Indian indie album to top the iTunes charts.
Nice.
And at the time, I had no idea what it means. I was like, yeah, cool, great. And now I'm thinking back, and it's like, oh, that's pretty cool that happened.
Yep. Yeah, that's fantastic. And so you're heading back to India for some time?
I've got 5 gigs coming up now, so I'll be there between the 12th and the 24th. I'll be back just in time for Christmas. Right. So since we last spoke, I went over to India, I think maybe 2 or 3 times to do a couple of tours. That turned out really well. So I'll be going back, sometime later this year, maybe post monsoon for more of that.
Yep.
And in the meantime, I've been finishing up another album. So there's around 10 songs that's in various stages of completion. So
fantastic.
It's basically just getting the ball rolling. Once it starts, then things move a bit quicker.
Yeah.
So, you can't really force it. That's the problem, you try and sit down and, like, okay, I'll work on it. And then you just like left waiting. And then sometimes like you've got a bunch of things already happening but the inspiration's flowing. So you kind of have to,
juggle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a target date, or is that still kind of up in the air?
I never make deadlines, unfortunately. I mean, I don't have someone else breathing on my back saying, oh, it needs to be ready by so and so. But when I feel it's, coming to completion, then I'll, set some targets in line. Yeah. But right now, I'm just happy to just, slowly chip away at it and, kind of finally starting to see the form emerge.
Very nice. Very nice. And you said there's 10 tracks?
There's 10. Yeah, I hope all 10 should be good to go.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And where have you been recording this?
All at home.
All at home.
So, yeah. I may get a friend to do some drum parts. Right now, they're all like mainly programmed or like drum machine. Because the thing is, the whole album's kind of about how AI is kind of changing our lives.
Nice.
Daily. Not totally about that, but that's kind of the overall vibe. So it is more electronic-y or synth heavy than I normally would, but it's kind of nice to kind of get out of a comfort zone and try something new as well.
Yeah Very nice. Speaking of AI, are you using any AI of late, or is it something?
No, the only AI I use is a text-to-speech converter right now, so basically that's like the narrator.
Nice. Very nice. That's great. And so when you play out here, do you have a venue that is your favorite to play, or the one that is the most?
Oh, you mean in Auckland?
In New Zealand in general, yeah.
I mean, I've played some cool venues in Wellington, but in Auckland, there's this old blues club that we played a couple of times. To be honest, I haven't really, done a lot in terms of getting blackstrat blues off the ground here.
Sure.
I was just like, it's such a niche thing. So to kind of, put in, it's like a lot more effort to actually get the gig up and running. But yeah, it's been one of my things to, like in the coming year to say maybe we should, maybe just get like the lineup back home in India has like been playing together for a very long time.
Right.
So it's just a matter of finding the
right people,
the right guys. Yeah. I used to be playing like heaps of gigs with other people, which I love doing, as a session guitar player and stuff like that. Almost to a point where I kind of would rather do more of that than my own stuff, and just because the same thing in India, we would be like session players on like Bollywood albums and tours and stuff like that. So this was almost like a therapy to decompress and just blow off some steam.
Very nice.
So yeah, that's still kind of how I see it, which is why I probably haven't said, okay, this is like something worth giving it a bit of a kick and see if I can get it off the ground.
Yeah. If it's working, don't try to fix it. So yeah. So what is your favorite secret weapon piece of gear that you have?
Would it be boring and saying the volume knob on the guitar?
No, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's perfect, because
it's everything for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that it goes to 10 and that's where it sits, and I think they lose the dynamic perfectness of it if they do that. So
I mean, there's no hard and fast rules because I've heard plenty of people get great sounds that way.
Mhm.
I just think there's more on tap if you are able to access that. It's like right there at your fingertips, so why not use it? It just means that you have to set things a little bit differently. You wouldn't set your amp to, where the guitar's on 10, it really sounds the best that way. So you back it off around 7 and set the whole rig that way. So then you can do things like hit a note and then roll the volume up and let the note bloom and get bigger, which you can't do if the volume's on 10.
yes.
And it also means there's less pedals and stuff that you actually need, because maybe like a couple of, like one mid-scooped one and one, with a slight mid bump, and you're good in front of a driven Marshall. You can kind of get that Marshall to clean up.
Yep.
And sound, really. In fact, that's like one of my favorite sounds, like a Marshall on the verge of breakup.
Mhm.
And you hit something like a fuzz face or treble booster, and then you drop the volume and just get this beautiful sparkling clean.
Yep.
Which many people think would be like a Fender Blackface or whatever, but it's actually a Marshall just with the volume down on the guitar.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. See, what's your split of digital versus analog gear in your signal chain typically?
In a totally live environment, ideally, I'd like an analog dry path through.
Mhm.
So if I am using digital stuff, it gets mixed in parallel. Like I'll have a Sir Mini Mix or something in the effects loop of the amp, and then like the HX, for example, you can set up parallel paths. So you'll have like a reverb on one and a delay on the other, but there's no dry signal going through there.
Right.
So that's like in an ideal world. But I have done gigs where just run the amp models on the HX stomp and jack into the effects return of a rental amp. Gets the job done, so I'm not too finicky as long as it, sounds good to my ears. And there's some kind of air moving on stage. I'm happy. But yeah, if I can get close to an analog dry path with zero latency, that's like my, ideal situation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. What's your favorite non-Strat guitar?
I'd probably say that R8 Les Paul at the back, because many of my favorite guitar players were Gibson players.
Nice.
From like early Cream, and though like all the guys, I kind of think they have like dual. Like Gary Moore was like sometimes a Strat guy and sometimes a Les Paul guy.
Yeah.
Same with Clapton. So yeah, the Les Paul's awesome for that, and I've got this old SG as well, so that for heavy rhythm and stuff like that gets pulled out. And there's a Dan Electra 12 string, which always comes in handy. There's a 335 with Glenn's P90s in it. That's a nice blues and jazz guitar. The Strats, I think I've got a few in different, tunings and string gauges. That's like standard is 10 to 46 and E flat is 11 to 49.
Okay.
And apart from electrics, there's a couple of those Godin solid body, one's a 12 string, one's a nylon.
Nice.
One Larrivee, that's my main acoustic. Actually, I just have one proper acoustic. There's a Dobro and a Taylor GS Mini, which I keep in Nashville tunings, those little, Gilmore style things where like all the lows are gone, that sort of thing. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like a modest arsenal, but it covers all the bases. One of the Strats, I think, has got 13s and it's tuned down like a C sharp or a B tuning. So if you need those, baritone bits on soundtracks and stuff like that, that's what gets useful.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. I was drooling over your SG. Excuse me. It's on my list of one to own one day as a nice SG.
Excellent!
Any new guitars in the stable or still just...
I did actually swap my SG for, just give me a minute, I'll just swing around and grab it for you. So this is, I think, a Les Paul traditional, late 2000s. And I always wanted a black Les Paul with the dual black humbuckers.
Yeah.
And Glenn wound these, which were called his Playmaker set. So I popped them in. They sounded great out of the bat. So I was like, oh, there we go. We're sorted.
That's great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful guitar.
Yeah, it looks like. So, I mean, my daughter, she came along with me to, go and grab it. So, she kind of was, because I took the 58 reissue as well. and she was curious, like, what's the difference between these two guitars? They both kind of, have the same shape and form. Why do they sound different? And also, she kind of like figured a little bit about that.
Yeah. So what's the neck like on the traditional?
On this one, it's not as chunky as the R8, but it's still got a bit of girth on it. Not really skinny or something like that, but
Right.
It feels pretty comfortable. This one I've got it tuned down in E flat in any case, so
Okay.
that's the reason I kind of got it. I was playing in a band which kind of needed a Les Paul tuned down to E flat. And then this one's, and every time I want to like jam along with Thin Lizzy or something, you don't want to have to tune it out every time.
Right.
Yeah. I kind of miss the SG, but this one's a lot more resonant and it kind of, does
nice.
the job. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's beautiful. And are you a Logic user?
I use Cubase. I mean, I kind of know my way around Logic and Pro Tools, but yeah, I prefer Cubase just out of, I'm quick with it. That's why.
Nice. Yeah. For a while, I've been looking for, I'm not going to call it the best for me, IR loader for using with Logic. And it's been a fun journey. So Wall of Sound was one of them that I was using for a while. That was pretty good. And then there's Lancaster Audio has one that's just kind of stupid simple. But then you can also use Tonocracy, and there's a million different ones out there, So I think I'm still trying to find the right one for me that I just actually enjoy using and is easy enough to swap them on the fly. So that's kind of what I was looking at there. So that's amazing. That's actually really good to hear. And I'm excited to hear the new tracks for sure. That'll be a lot of fun, especially because you just mentioned they sound a bit different. So that's always fun to see. Yeah. That's great. So you said you're probably traveling back to India for some more gigs at some point in the near future after monsoon season.
Yeah, we're still scheduling it. Certain most probably because the season in India winds down by the end of March, and then it kicks up again, by September end, going into October. So around that time, hopefully, and then maybe sometime early next year as well.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Are you doing anything locally until then?
I've been like very lazy actually about it, but there's a friend of mine, Ben Fernandez, so I've been playing with him off and on, every time he needs some guitars, he gives me a call. So we've been talking about putting together a little, instrumental project. So I think it looks like we may get some traction on that, but it's still early days right now.
Okay, very cool. That sounds awesome. Yeah. Again, the studio tour video was great, and I highly recommend anybody.
I should make an updated one actually because I've got better lighting and cameras now.
Yeah. It got the point across though. It was good.
Yeah,
for sure. Do you have a favorite Aotearoa artist?
When I first came here, I got into a band called Trinity Roots in a big way, and I still, think they're one of the finest bands the country's ever produced. Because it was like very different music, I guess, to what I'd been used to listening to, and suddenly it's like, it's almost like dub in places and jazzy, but it's got like deep soul, which is what I, really connected to. I love Tammy Nielsen. She's an amazing singer, so love listening to her. I mean, there's so many great artists from this country, but sometimes it's like, I just wish the world knew a little bit more about them.
Agreed.
So I do my bit to say, check these guys out.
Yeah, for sure. That's the whole purpose of the show. So absolutely. So you said you're electronically inclined?
Yeah, and no means I don't go deep in that, but like my basic, electronics and electrical knowledge is sound. I did 3 years of engineering and I left to join a recording studio. So
nice.
There's a little bit of that background. Though I wish I kind of, stayed in touch with it a little bit more. So, I'd build the odd pedal kit and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I know enough to do basic servicing, like especially on a guitar. That's totally cool. I can take apart a schematic and wire it. the insides of the amps, I'm a little bit wary of poking, and I'm like, I know how to discharge it, so at least it's not going to kill me.
Yeah.
But in terms of like a serious repair, I'd rather refer it to someone who does it on a daily basis.
Sure, that makes sense. What do you think the most complicated thing that you've done on an amp would be?
Let me think. Well, this custom audio, it started blowing fuses at one point, and then Sir recommended I change the value of the screen grid resistors.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, it's a simple process, but it just required taking your time and, not making it look ugly.
Sure.
So yeah, I think I did that pretty well. It still works fine, and it stopped blowing fuses, which is nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. What does your writing process look like? So is it something where you hear something in your head and you can put it down, or does most of it come from playing and then playing something and then going, oh, that's a nice starting point? Or yeah, how does that work for you?
I'd say all of the above, because you have to just be open to like every single point of inspiration that's available. So sometimes I'll hear something in my head, like a melody, and then try and form a chord progression that works with it. Sometimes I'm doodling on the guitar and I come across a chord progression which I find particularly interesting. And sometimes I like chord progressions just have like dual natures to them. So like, you can kind of almost invert them by just changing a bass note and totally changing how they feel. So when those happen, I'm like, there's a song called Folkish 3, which I was like, really happy with how that turned out. But that came across from just basically taking a 2-note arpeggio, or like 3-note arpeggio, and then just changing the bass notes behind it.
Oh, nice.
So that's something that I've always been, trying to, every time you get stuck, sometimes that comes to help. Or you'll just take one bass note and just move a few different inversions around that, and then kind of, creates. It's all about getting inspired by the sound of it. So where you actually have to almost not work hard at bringing it to life. You just let things happen organically, and then before you know it, like, oh, there's this cool thing in front of you.
Now you have a song.
Those are the best ones. Sometimes you do have to like, chip and chop, and like there was a song that I wrote the B section maybe 3 years later.
Oh,
then
nice.
I was like, I know what to do with this one. I've got that unfinished one, and you put them together and it just works so perfectly. It sometimes things take time, and then I'm happy to do that, because people sometimes ask, oh, when's your next album out? So I'm like, when it's ready,
Yeah.
I don't really have a record company breathing down my neck saying, we need to put this out by so-and-so date or whatever. So I kind of almost to a point where sometimes I think a little bit of pressure would help. But there's none. So, things just happen when they happen. And when they do come out, it's like, at least it's a little snapshot of, of you, a little bit of time that you've lived.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a reflection, more of a reflection than a under the gun crunch time.
Yeah.
So yeah. So do you feel a huge difference between, say, a rosewood fingerboard and a maple fingerboard?
In terms of how they feel to your fingers, yeah, sure, because the maple one is usually coated and the rosewood one is bare. In terms of sound, I think it's more like I found like the actual, dimensions of the neck sometimes have more of an effect on the actual thing. And it's so like, it's very hard to actually form scientific opinions about these things because there are so many other variables in the chain.
Right.
So, down to the fact, even like on a rosewood Strat, if your pickups are like that much higher, they're going to, sound the same pickup set will sound different on 2 different guitars. And then you may think it's the neck that's, causing it or whatever. And, I've seen like these studies where they try and, narrow down all the variables and, get it as close. But even then, like this, there's so many other things that could be, causing an effect. So I kind of like look at it on the whole. It's like the whole system in synergy with each other. So like, say you've got a rosewood neck Strat, and you need to just run the amp a little bit brighter if it's darker, or the other way around. And as long as you have the whole thing in balance and you have the years and the knowledge to instinctively know what to do with it, then
you're fine.
I don't care if it's red as well. Actually, no, red suddenly.
Yeah. As far as fret sizes go, do you have a preferred fret size?
Like this one here, that's probably got the biggest. These are probably 60, 100 equivalent stainless steels.
Yep.
So I love this neck. It's super comfy to play. The only thing is if you're chording and stuff, you may be able to push notes like slightly sharp. In which case, slightly smaller frets would be better off on rhythm guitar. But as a soloing instrument, this one's awesome.
Nice.
So if I had one guitar, yeah, I'd probably go with the heavy jumbos. But thankfully, I don't. So it's nice to have other options.
Yes, yeah, for sure. So you talked about all of your influences, and I know that a lot of them were the Brit rock folks. And so that you listed like Clapton, because Cream, and of course Page, right? And
Brian May.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah, huge. Don Felder from the Eagles, very underrated guitar player. But yeah, my dad was a big Eagles fan, so that's that Clapton. He listened to a lot of Santana, that Clapton as well. Later on, I think in my early 20s is when I started getting into Pink Floyd. So people say like, oh, you've got some similarity to Gilmour or whatever, but yeah, I guess so, because maybe I think I use the Univibe or something on something and they think, oh, that's what it. But I think my actual playing style is quite different to his. Maybe the melodic similarities, pop, and it's hard to like, not be influenced by amazing guitar playing.
Right.
And like the whole bunch of like 80 shredders and stuff, I had my face to listening, which is why when I saw Nuno, I was like, man, I was like heavily into that stuff. He's a great rhythm guitar player. I think all the guys who I taught were bluesy and they had great sense of rhythm. So that's Eddie Van Halen, Nuno, all, I think Warren DeMartini, So there's a little bit of that influenced me as well. And Jeff Beck was like a huge thing in my later 20s. That's kind of when I kind of had the ability to appreciate what he was doing. And I think the whammy bar thing came in as well.
Yeah.
Michael Landau and Scott Henderson, again, like later as I grew older, Robin Ford, a guy called Matt Schofield, blues guitar player from the UK. I Derek Trucks, man. You can't like ever try to attempt anything. I don't play slide that well, but just the overall musicality is something that you can totally be influenced by.
Yep, for sure. Knopfler, is that one in there too?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. My wife's a pretty big Dire Straits fan as well. So like that's kind of stuff we connected on as well. The old Dire Straits stuff. Yeah, I mean, though I never really kind of did the whole finger picking thing. Like I'm normally like just thumb and forefinger.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, tone, melodic sensibility, like that. Though I think, for me, like the Les Paul sounds, those were like more influential than the Strat ones.
Hilariously, yeah. I did notice that you mentioned different picks during the studio tour that you did on YouTube, and I think that's an underrated thing as well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so tell me about your experience with swapping them up and what you hear and or feel.
I used to be like a very rigid, pick aficionado. So like these Fender extra heavies, and you can see those, yeah. Those, then the Dunlop Tortex stuff, that's all the stuff I gravitated to right away, because I guess, it was like reacting immediately to what he did. Of late, I really like these Max grips. I think I'm becoming older and, I could use a little bit of the grip. But the 88s, I think, to me, I went through a whole bunch of different thicknesses. The 88s and the 1mm, I like those. And these Dunlop nylons. My friend went to a Landau gig and he was like, man, that's what he's using. So each of us bought a bag of 72 of these. So if you want to try a couple, I'll send some to you. But they're really nice picks. Also, like this end, I guess you probably know this, but the round end is a thing. Like you play with that and it just fattens it up a little bit.
Yep.
And of late, again, this is another recent discovery, the good old 88 again. So I went to like a whole bunch of 88s and, see like this is the material I like. And I bought some stuff and they sent me these Fender mediums. And I was like, oh, I can, find a use for it. And like acoustic strumming, these 0.60 mm Dunlops,
Nice.
nylons. Yeah. Good for that sort of stuff, like not too much resistance. And if I'm like maybe doing like some picking on acoustic, I'll probably use like 0.73 Tortex, just a little bit stiffer. And yeah, I've got a few of the ones with the extra pointy tips. I think my brother's probably grabbed a couple off my table, but those are nice for like alternate picking, because like I need all the help I can get with that sort of thing. I didn't really spend too much time practicing alternate picking when I was younger. I was more like a legato guy, like high gain, bit of delay and reverb, and let the left hand fly, the right hand's kind of, waving to the crowd or something like that. But yeah, usually all the speed chops I had came from legato playing, and then recently, I think during lockdown is when I started like, shit, I need to actually, spend some time now that I've got the time to, figure this out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a little bit of a learning curve in terms of learning how to relax your right hand. I think that's like the key to it,
Nice.
I recently saw some video, like, the conventional wisdom is practice slowly with a metronome and build up your speed till where you can play it fast. But I think it was Andy Wood. He was saying, the mechanics of playing fast and the mechanics of playing slow are totally different. So it's almost like a buffing wheel where you're practicing at full speed and then slowly trying to, increase the accuracy, which I think is like, oh, that's new for me. So I'm going to like see if that works. The cool thing is like you're always learning. You never really come to a point where like saying, oh, I've got it all figured out.
Yep.
Even though, sometimes it feels like, oh, this is working at this point of time, but you never know if it's going to keep on working down the line. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point on the old concept of if you can't play it slow, you can't play it fast.
Mm-hmm.
I've never ever found that to be true ever. So and I'm a drummer at heart, but I've been playing guitar since 90, I guess. And I've noticed that I do wind up playing things better faster when the thing I'm trying to play is faster and not trying to slowly build up.
Yeah.
What I notice is when I slowly start building up to anything, whether it be on the drums or on the guitar, I start tensing up the faster I go, and it's just kind of like, the curve is directly proportional to tensing up as it is to speeding up. So
I just wonder how much of it is your brain knowing that you can only play so fast and it telling you like you can't play faster than that. So it's actually physically slowing you down. So the moment you get rid of that, thing in your brain that says you can't do it.
Yeah.
Because another thing, I was watching this guy, he was talking about like when, these fighter pilots, they do, obstacle flying and stuff, they're not focusing on the obstacles. They're focusing on the way through the obstacles. That's what they've got their eyes locked in on, apparently.
Yeah.
So I think that's a useful concept to, keep in mind. You're just focusing on actually doing it and not on the voice that says, "No, you can't do this."
Yeah. I think that's it. And I think rather than focus on speed or slowness or fastness, is working on smoothness is probably a better way to kind of get that stuck in your head, because if you're playing, I think it's a Navy SEAL thing, which is slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So yeah, that kind of rings true. Seems to be good. And hilariously, I just got to point this out. I just realized that the Google Meet that we're on here actually has Aussie right in the middle of it. So that is cracking me up. And D, like D Snyder. So there we go. That's the most musical random Google Meet I've ever had. So.
Nice.
Yeah. So I know you have your Soldano. Tell me about what you typically use that for.
It's actually a really versatile amp. Most people think it's a one-trick pony, but I really like that crunch channel. That reminds me a lot of a Civilized 800. And the overdrive channel is like the one that, everyone raves about, and that's what they buy it for. But I found like a lot of guys like Gary Moore, for example, they would use the crunch channel and hit it with a tube screamer if they wanted more gain. I think even Knopfler and Clapton were probably living on the crunch channel, listening to, what they did with that amp. So again, Warren Haynes, he'd probably run the overdrive channel like really low, like maybe 3 or 4 on the gain. So I'm not really looking at getting like full on, high gain shred sounds from it, though it can do that if you wanted to. But I really like the ability how it cleans up. So I actually did an entire gig. I think it's on the first live album.
Okay.
So that whole gig was just me plugging straight into the Soldano, and then that slave out I had running in through some delay and reverb, and that was on a second, wet amp or whatever. So, just had to do the whole gig with just rolling up and down your volume knob. And then if you wanted the extra gain boost, you just hit the overdrive channel.
Nice.
So the master, I think, is the trick to it, because the moment you get it past like 6, whoomp, it just wakes up. And then, it's got this giant, huge lead sound, which is really focused, I think, in the mids. So like if I just want that lead sound to soar through something, and be like really smooth, but yet cutting through, then that's the guy that, will get the job done. And
Nice.
it doesn't really need any pedals in front, like all my other amps. Just to get to like a lead sound, I'd probably have some kind of a boost. But that's one amp which is straight into the amp and nothing in between.
Nice.
And it's one of the most responsive amps to preamp tube swapping.
Okay.
So, the good thing is the front panel comes out really easily. So you can just, straight get to work without having to like, put your hand in the back and shit like that.
Yeah.
So I spent an entire day, and I found this guy in Mumbai. He used to be a radio surplus dealer back in, whenever they needed tubes. And he had this whole stash of, Philips mini watts and RCAs and stuff like that. So I got him to send me like, a couple of boxes. And then I sat and, at least figured out these ones are not too microphonic.
Yes.
Or noisy.
Yep.
So then I rejected a whole bunch, and then I just bought like, which is kind of, never really get to do that these days anymore. You just like buy it on eBay, and then you got to take the risk and, throw out the shit ones.
Yeah.
So that kind of, I was like, I'll save the nice tubes for this one. So I did a day of, tube rolling.
Yep.
Like as you do.
Yep.
And I think I've got the first two are the Mullards, I think they call the I-63s. And then there's these military spec Jan 12AX7WAs, which again, some guy on eBay was selling like 10 of them for like a ridiculously cheap price. I was like, I'll take a punt on that. And they were all really good. So, and they are like super, low noise and that stuff. And the Mullards do like the coloring. And these guys are like, no bullshit, straight up. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, I have a NV1 on the Marshall. I have a CV4014, which is CV4004, which is actually just the military spec Mullard 12AX7, classic
ECC83.
Yeah, ECC83, exactly. So it sounds fantastic. It's just the perfect V1. So but I have some RCAs as well. At vintage, they're all vintage because I bought like 25 boxes of random tubes off of Trade Me. So
have you ever run to the RCA long plates?
I think I have one of those, yes. Although for some reason it's extremely microphonic, if I remember correctly.
That's the whole thing. Yeah, they're microphonic, but they're supremely colorful.
Yes.
So all the ones I found were the short plate ones, but it'll be nice to try a long plate one as well.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, that one was long plate, and if I even just like reached over to touch a knob and I hit the knob, it would just immediately ring clean out. It's like, wow, I don't think I can fit this in here and leave it. Unless I'm, doing something just specific and I'm not going to touch the amp and there's no actual air moving in the room. If it's like silent recording style, then I think it would work out just fine and sound really good. Yeah, for sure. So your YouTube channel, I actually watched your interview with Leon and Nick, and a question came to mind, which was, what's the most hilarious comment you might have ever gotten on any of your videos that sticks out in your mind?
I don't know what's hilarious, but there was one that kind of made me go, what the fuck? It wasn't on my channel, but it was like a Blackstrat video on some other channel.
Yeah.
This guy was like, this guy uses a Strat, but he spends all his time on the bridge pickup.
Oh dear.
I just burst out laughing. I was like, okay, you can't make everyone happy,
No, you can't. At one point, I saw someone actually make a comment, and this is a complete compliment to you, but a complete compliment that when you moved to New Zealand, it was one of India's biggest losses. So that's some pretty high praise. But obviously,
the average Indian doesn't know who I am, and they would not care. So yeah, it's a bit of hyperbole, but yeah, I'll take that. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That was I thought that was a great quote. But obviously, you go back quite often to play, so this has got to be one of those people.
Yeah, thankfully now with the world resuming a little bit back to normal post COVID, it's a little easier. So I think this year I've been there. It'll be the third time I'm going there.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of good because also you get a little bit of disconnect from the madness. Yeah. So you can almost gather your thoughts. That's another thing as well, because when I first moved here, and I was playing guitar at my parents' house. I was like, man, I can actually hear notes decaying into silence here. And that was huge for me, Then that's kind of when I started listening to, otherwise it was just, get a sound and it sounds good, cool, let's roll with that, Yep. And unless you were in a soundproof recording studio in India, which, you don't get to do every day, it's the silence is pretty, I wish we could do a bit of exchange sometimes because it's almost too quiet.
Yeah.
So we'll send you some silence, send us some noise,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and where were you at in India?
I grew up in Bombay.
Okay.
So I spent my first 25 years there. In fact, I landed here for the first time on my 25th birthday.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a Sunday, I remember. And my parents made me go to church and the gospel was the prodigal son. It's like, oh man, this is getting a little bit too
close to home. Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
But it was cool growing up there. I mean, we didn't really have the most resources in terms of, accessibility to gear and stuff like that. But thankfully, I guess also because my dad was musical and he had some buddies and people would say, oh, listen to this album, someone gave me Robin Ford, Talk to Your Daughter, and that was like, oh shit, I would have never found this in the in the cassette store. So it was. And one thing I do remember very clearly is we had this used magazine store. For some reason they had a stack of guitar magazines. I don't know where they got them from, and I was forever going there and trying to do deals. Can you give me 10 magazines for this much money? That's all I have. That's my pocket money. And I come up with the magazines and they were treasures, and I would open it, and I still have a little bit of a stack of some of them.
Nice.
And then then you read the gear reviews as you do, and every word you savor and everything and like that. And that's kind of when I saw the Soldano for the first time. There was this one issue where they reviewed 28 high gain 100-watt amps, and the Soldano was one of them. And I think they wrote this amp just wants to rock or something like that, In fact, they reviewed a Dumble when it was $5,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And they were like, oh, this amp kind of needs a very specific player to get the most out of it. You need some nuance. And I was like, it's boring. I don't want to do that. So what about that Soldano? That sounds interesting. It wants to rock. And
yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, I think it's funny because a lot of people have a lot of different, I think, artists in their heads when they start talking about Soldano, and the one that my head goes to first, which is a little strange for me, is actually Prince. So
okay,
and
I didn't even know that he used them. He was a Mesa guy as far as I know.
Yep.
He had some Mark IIIs, those Colosseum big ass ones.
Yep. Yeah, they were huge. But yes, he actually played a Soldano for several things. And I think I heard one of his sound checks or something at one point, on a video, mind you, and was just like, that is a crazy cool tone. So, and with a lot of dynamic in it, but the ability to just roar when when open, full open. So that was really cool. So the Sur amp that you have with only the 3 knobs, tell me, is that 4? 4? Sorry, 4 knobs. Yep.
That's a Bella.
Yeah.
It's like a I think a Fender black panel kind of thing, but he's added some think, tweed style tone stack or something like that. And there have been like these comments that it's kind of based on Scott Henderson's Dumble modded Bandmaster. So, you know, I was touring the States at the time. I was like, I need a nice clean amp, you know, that'll, you know, take pedals well. And, you know, and the Bella had just come out. In fact, I was probably one of the first guys to buy it and they had just got the stock in, and it was like, send it across to my hotel. So I remember getting into like, the hotel was in Times Square. And the guy comes from the, you know, the big, oh, you've got a parcel here. You know? So then I used it for the rest of the tour. And, you know, the good thing about it also is when I got back to India, to convert it to a 240 volt was just like a wire swap.
Nice.
Otherwise, sometimes like the Soldano is still 110 volts and I've got a little transformer running it. Sometimes I think, you know, I should just get it converted to 240. And while I'm doing it, I'll get the effects loop moved, you know, down the line, which is like where it should be. But then part of me just doesn't want to, like, you know, mess with a good thing. It already sounds so good. So, you know,
I take the chance.
I'm kind of torn. I'd love to gig it, you know, but to gig it, I'd have to get it. I'm not lugging a transformer as well.
Right. Yeah, that turns into a lot of gear really quick. So
the interesting thing though, at the back it says 117 volts, which is like very specific, you know. And the transformer I've got is like 110, so it's almost like browning it out a little bit. So I don't know if that's part of the deal as well.
Yeah, one thing that, and you know, we were talking about the DC offset. One thing I have noticed is when I throw one of my 50 watters on my Variac and bring it up to about 90, not 90 volts. Sorry. I bring it up to about, I think it's right about 200 volts. The hum goes away completely, which kind of makes sense because the offset is likely different at that point because the waveform is smaller.
And anything past it, you get it back, is it? Yeah.
As soon as I start going up, the hum just starts ramps until I get up to full voltage, and it's just like shaking. So yeah, that's interesting. And actually, the power station that I have is a Japanese model, so it's built for the 100 volt. And so that one's around 90. When I get it to about 90, it's like nice and quiet and everything's working fine. But then I'm like, I don't need like 6 Variacs, you know, and now just to calm all of this stuff down. So so I'll try a DC blocker and see what happens. Go from there.
It's worth a try, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? And I know your go-to amp, I think you said at least in the studio video, was the custom audio.
Yeah, it's mainly because it's 2 channels and both great. One like Fender style, one Marshall style. Also the Dirty channel, he used to do a few different versions of it. There was a standard and an SE, which is like a high gain version. This one was a Classic Plus, which I think came from Landau's Marshall. That's modded, so that's kind of what it is. So I've got another 79, I think 79 or 80 2203, the JMP one, not the 800. That did the same mod to it. So it's like whatever is in channel 2, I just want the same thing. But that's kind of slightly different sounding, I guess, because of the old Marshall transformers rather than, you know, the ones uses. So they're slightly like the Marshall's a little raw sounding, I would think. This one's a little more like, you know, polished and stuff like that. But it takes pedals really well. And the good thing is with the 2 channels, like say the same pedal, like an RC booster, for example, you'll get one sound from the clean channel and one sound from so it's every pedal has like 2, you know. It's almost like it's got an alter ego. And I found that fascinating, like, you know, a bunch of different, so let's say I've got an RC booster, max on SD9, full tone Octafuzz, max on OD9, like a tube screamer kind of thing. Boss CS2, which is like a bit of a secret weapon into distortion. A damn Red Rooster. An MXR super badass Variac fuzz. It's one of those things you can drop the voltage and it goes like all spitty, or it can get like really, you know, big and bold sounding. And the old Roger Mayer Voodoo one. So, you know, between those pedals and the 2 channels of the amp, there's like heaps of different sounds that you can, you know, so if you're wanting to go through different sounds without having to So I'll do like the basic tracks maybe with that amp. And then if I need specific sounds, I'll go to that amp rack and probably just plug straight into the amp. So that's more like a purer amp sound thing. And this is like a pedal rig. And the good thing is the pedals are controlled by this Music Home Lab switcher, and that switches the amp channels as well. So I can just create presets.
Nice.
And then some very sweet guy wrote a MIDI program that lets you control the UA console via MIDI as well. So then that's sending, on and off stuff to the rack effects.
Nice.
Some, guy basically just creating presets on the fly. So I'm quite used to working very quickly. Sometimes you have to have that, quick workflow just to get the ideas down. Otherwise, by the time you have the sound dialed in, kind of forgotten the essence of what you were going for. So yeah, if I find that like a really useful thing to just have like a whole palette of easily accessible and familiar sounds that are available like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a fantastic setup. I did notice, what do you typically use when you're coming out of the sewer and into your interface for your cab sim? Are you just using the aux?
The aux stomp,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to go through one of the U80 amp sims and bypass the amp part and just use only the cab sim. And then I would run that into Ocean Way on an aux bus to just give it some, room sound and then a lexicon reverb, that sort of thing. I found the aux cabinet, the modeling of whatever cabinets and mics they've done, the quality is really good. They only give you 2 mic positions, unfortunately. Okay. And you can only run 1 cab at a time. Another really good one I found was 2 Notes Wall of Sound.
Yes.
Especially those Friedman cabs and stuff like that. So I went through a rabbit hole trying a bunch, and they have like that, online thing where you can audition cabs.
Yep.
Which is pretty awesome. So I made them a couple of videos, and then they sent me a bunch of cabs. I think that was pretty cool.
Nice.
So if I wasn't using the aux, and sometimes I do take the there's another line out box I've got, so I can actually have 2 parallel line outs running off the same speaker tap on the amp. And that is like a, just a backup in case I want to try different, cabs later on. I mean, I can always send it back into the aux.
Yeah.
The aux does have a particular sound to it. Some people like it, some people don't. I find it like, I have to EQ it a bit, I found. But thankfully they've given you enough control with EQ. Unfortunately, they don't tell you what the frequencies are on the app. You have to kind of go to the manual and get it out of there. Again, they could have just made your life a little bit simpler, but at least it sounds great. So that's the overall, the overall takeaway from it. They've got really nice 4x10s. I've never really had a 4x10 cab, and I kept listening to a whole bunch of super reverb players, and I was like, oh, I should try some of that. So I think it's not a super, it's a Bassman 4x10, and I got into a Fabulous Thunderbirds trip one day. I was like, man, that Jimmy Vaughan song and that song, like, trying to get it really close. So I found like, oh, with that cab, it, try a few different mics and stuff. So that sometimes becomes like a little bit of a hobby for me, especially these days when you can find isolated guitar tracks on YouTube.
Yes.
And, chase the tone a little bit closer. And so much is down to the playing. But when you get, the sound close, it makes you want to, dig in a little bit more and get the playing also to
right. Yeah, on par. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Is there any new technology coming out that kind of excites you or has caught your attention?
The neural amp modeler stuff, considering it's free and people are I think there needs to be a standard in terms of levels though, because each profile the levels are all over the place. So if you're a new player trying to get into that, you may have some learning curves with setting your input and output volumes accordingly. The good thing is it offers you the ability to try gear, and if you want to maybe like when I started with the Line 6 stuff, the Soldano was one of my go-to models, and then I said I need to get the real one. So it could just help you narrow down what stuff works for your playing.
Sure.
Because everyone plays differently, so what works for your Guitar Hero might not work for you, as I found out the hard way.
yeah for sure. And I think you just mentioned it a minute ago, one of the things I think is really cool and interesting coming up is some of the new tech that can be used to separate out stems for the instruments in a track that you have, and it just automagically can pull those things out. So I think that one excites me.
Yeah, totally.
There's another one too that might be of interest to you called Muse. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it allows you to actually do online recording sessions. So just like you and I are talking right now, this thing does extremely low latency online recording, and you can basically share your DAW and people can tweak remotely, and that one's a lot of fun too.
I've used this one called Audio Movers Listen To. So it's like a plugin that goes across your master bus, and you can, transmit high quality audio to a client.
Yep.
But unfortunately, something I figured out during lockdown is the laws of physics still apply. Even if it's traveling at the speed of light,
it's still the speed of light. Yes.
There's still an audible latency. So, between, like, say in New Zealand, it's great. But if you're in New Zealand and your client's in London, you're still going to...
There's still going to be some latency. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I find it easy for me to give them a feed that they can listen to while I'm recording on my end. And once they've, approved everything, then I just send them the files later, which they'll just pull into the DAW, and that's how things are. But it's a great times for, just the way things are moving.
Yeah, it's great.
And also with, like, the ability for, like, you to tell AI, make me a Queen song with David Gilmour on guitar, and, whatever, some weird permutation that kind of does that.
Yep.
Right now, we were, like, my bandmates and us, we were, like, having fun in the car trying to get it to write lyrics. So, can you do me like a Steely Dan style lyric, but give it some weird topic, and I personally, the camp I'm in is no thank you robots for anything that's artistic, but you want to do my dishes, like, let's do everything.
It.
Yeah. I mean, when the electric guitar came, it must have pissed off some people.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Mostly the steel players, as I understand it, because they were the ones that actually had amplifiers. So, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think that's it with any technology, right?
I think it's down to the people that drive it. So, if you get really good at prompting it, and it comes up with, valid results as a result of you engaging with it, who's to say that's not a valid, piece of music? I think if you just basically make it do all the work, people are kind of going to know when, I think, as we are exposed to more of AI generated stuff, people are kind of going to know, like, now when it's auto-tuned, inherently, like when you hear a real singer without any auto-tune, you just connect to it, in a way that you don't even know why you're doing it, but you do.
You do. Yeah, for sure. And it's inherent. Yeah, awesome. This has been fantastic, Warren. I really appreciate it.
Cool, man. It's been fun for me as well.
Yeah, really good chat.